Hey everybody, how's it going, New Ulm? How's everybody doing? So, my name's Keith Ellison. I'm your Attorney General, and it is a great honor to be with you this evening. The Attorney General's office, we really believe it's critical that if you're a public servant, you should be talking to the public, right? You should. We believe it's absolutely essential to get your views on things. So much of this meeting is going to be, it's your meeting. I'm going to do my best to answer your questions, but also you don't have to have a question. You can just say your opinion, and I'll be taking notes, all right? And Zach over there, give him a hand. When we get to the point in the meeting where we're gonna we're gonna talk together, Zach's going to run you the microphone. And let me just ask you this: can we all agree together, like democracy, that you can say anything you want to say? You got a minute to say it. Is a minute okay? You want more than a minute? No. You get a minute to say it. You get your 60 seconds to say whatever you want to say. You can even get back in line, but you got to let other people talk. You know what I mean? So we want to get as many people through. So you could say, and by the way, everybody is welcome here. I don't care who you voted for. That's kind of your business, right? And you can say whatever you want to say in that regard. But I just ask that, look, in politics sometimes emotions run high, don't they? So let's just say that, we're just going to do this thing where anybody can say what they want to say. They're going to be treated with respect. We're not going to boo anybody, and they just say what they think is right, and then we move on. So let me tell you, at the Attorney General's office, we do a lot of things. You've probably been hearing a lot about our work doing federal accountability. And we've now sued the Trump administration about 54 times. But we do other stuff, right? And and I want you to know about that stuff because you may need to give us a call sometimes. One of the biggest things we do is we do a lot of consumer protection. And we have about 28 people who operate phones. And if you call them, they'll pick up. We get about 85,000 calls a year because it might be that you got some sort of a Wi-Fi or cable service, and they said they'd give you a free toaster if you signed up with them, and they said it'd be $40 a month. It ended up they don't send you the toaster, and they charge you $140 a month. So when that happens, you should call the Attorney General's office. Because we got people who will first of all, we'll call them and we'll send them letters and say, we're from the Attorney General's office, and you didn't treat Ms. McGillicuddy right, and that's how he starts. But then if they won't listen, then we end up trying to having to sue them too. And, you might think, well, Keith, you sue a lot of people. It's true that I do. But it's my main tool to try to make people obey the law. And so I used to be an investigator. I'm not an investigator. I was an investigator, but I used to be a legislator. And I would write what the laws would be along with other people. Now I'm a law enforcer, so that is kind of what I do. I sue people and I defend lawsuits. That's what it means to be an attorney general. But in addition to the work that we do in the consumer, we do landlord-tenant stuff. We've been taking a special interest in people who live in manufactured housing communities because I believe those are good options for housing if the property owners treat the property right. We also do stuff on wage theft. I mean, most of us go to work and we get the money back that we worked for, but it doesn't always happen, friends. And when it does, we work on the side of the worker to make sure that they get paid properly. And we also do a lot of work advising employers on what the proper rules are. We also do stuff on antitrust, which is in our consumer division. And this is I tell you, if we were having this conversation in 1980, nearly every industry that we talked about would have like 10, 20 producers in the field. Now it's about 4 in nearly every industry. I don't care if you're talking about chicken or beef or pork or cold cereal or hotel rooms, or beer. Our markets have consolidated. We will get involved in those things and we'll oppose mergers when we think they can be troublesome. You all might have some feelings about Netflix and Warner Brothers and CBS. You've been hearing about that one? And, I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts who wants to share those. So that's just consumer protection. Oh, another thing we do in consumer protection is we represent you in front of the Public Utilities Commission when the big utilities want to increase your rates. So that's our job. We oppose some of the, when they want a rate increase, we will be the ones saying, well, wait a minute, you can't justify that rate increase. So that's another thing we do. That's all consumer protection. The other thing we do is we have something called the solicitors group, and what they do is appeals. We got a bunch of lawyers who just do nothing but write appeals, and they're literally shaping the law. And they appear in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, the Minnesota Supreme Court, all the time. And they do they work with our federal accountability group a lot. The other group we do is this government supports. They just represent the state government, Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Corrections, the Public Utilities Commission. There's over 100 boards and commissions, and this group does nothing but represent those folks right there. And then we have a criminal group. And the criminal group, in Minnesota, we have a county attorney system. So the county attorney is responsible for prosecuting crimes in the county in which they happen. But sometimes if you have a small county and you got a big, ugly homicide, they will call in the Attorney General's office and we will assist and help. And we do those quite a bit. We end up doing about 100 of those kind of cases a year. And they also our criminal group also does Medicaid fraud cases. And I've prosecuted, convicted about 300 people since I was the Attorney General. In Medicaid fraud, but we don't have the authority to just prosecute anybody anywhere. The county has to bring us in, or the governor can assign us, but I can't just say that's my case unless it's a Medicaid fraud case. Now, given that, I want to talk to you about the federal accountability work. So here's the thing I would like you to know. I don't wake up in the morning hoping to sue Trump. I have done it 54 times, but he gets up and violates the law. And so our alternative is to either let him do it or do something about it. I've decided to do something about it. And so that's what brings us in contact with the Trump administration. I can tell you back in March 2024, it looked, Biden was the president. We didn't know what the outcome of the election was going to be, but we started looking at the polls and thought it could go either way. So some of us had been AG during Trump won, and so we started meeting. We got this document called Project 2025. Who's heard of it? Right, and we divided up. We all read all 900 pages, and then we divided up the workload. And when I say we, I'm talking about all 23 attorneys general who were willing to be part of this. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is important for me to tell you. I would love it if I could get a Republican AG to join us. We haven't been able to. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I got several friends of mine who are Republican AGs. I like them. I think they like me. We get along fine. We're part of a group called the National Association of Attorneys General. We have dinner. And so I'm going to tell you this. I won't name names because they're friends, but I've said, hey, why don't you guys join these cases? I mean, he's trying to take your money too. And they're like, man, if we did that, he would get us. And so they haven't been joining us very much, which is too bad because we are together on other cases. Democrats and Republican AGs are suing Meta. We all did all the opioid litigation together. We all did the tobacco litigation, Democrat and Republican. Your cousin who lives in Texas, I was on a case with their Republican Attorney General. So it's not like we fight all the time. We don't. It's not like Congress, right? We actually work together a fair amount, but on this stuff, when it comes to holding, when it comes to the all the federal accountability stuff, we haven't been able to get any of them. And I'm like, look, We're fighting over these tariffs. They're hurting your people just like they're hurting ours. And we couldn't get them on. And so that is something that I want you to be aware of. We'd love to have them on. When the first one shows up, I'll be the happiest guy in town. But the cases that we've been fighting have been cases that we've absolutely had to fight. The most recent one that we got some answers on is the tariff case. And we won on that case hands down. 12 states, Minnesota being one of them, joined together and sued the Trump administration because he said he had the power to tariff anybody he wanted to, anytime he wanted to. All he had to do was say there was an emergency and tariffs all day and every day. Well, the Constitution reserves the power to tax and raise duties and tariffs to the Congress. And he just usurped that power. We sued him over that. And even this Supreme Court, including John Roberts, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, joined with the other three, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson, and in 6-3, ruled against the president. And I can tell you that there's been a lot of pain. It's been, in the agricultural communities, they've paid more for, and you name it. The fertilizer inputs, potash inputs, all kinds of things. Wood that we import from Canada. And some people didn't know that a tariff was a tax on Americans. People didn't know that. They said, they think they're taxing China. No, they're taxing us. And so, that's where the $175 billion comes in. The big question is, what are we going to do about it? Do y'all have any opinion as to what we should do with the $175 billion that he collected? Do you want it back? Anybody want it back? You all paid it. You all paid it. I'll take that as we want our money back. And so that's the latest one, but there's others that we've had to file all the time. Well, the first one I'll tell you is the birthright citizenship case. And the Constitution says that all people are citizens of the state in which they were born or naturalized in. And he can't just say, no, it isn't. We sued him over that. And the Supreme Court has not given a final ruling on that, but I'm confident that he's going to lose on that one. He might not even get Clarence Thomas on that one. I want to see what Clarence is what pretzel he's going to twist himself into to side with Trump on that one. The other one, the next one was a general funding freeze. I don't know if you remember, but way back in January 2025, Trump said, I'm freezing all federal funding on everything, everywhere, for everyone. We sued him right away within 24 hours, and we got the money put right back on. Now there's a few of them that I want to talk to you about that I think we should talk about. One of them is that I have had to sue the president over him saying that he's going to restrict money to Minnesota unless we stop doing gender-affirming care. And let me just tell you this. I know a lot of people feel different ways about this stuff. I will say this to you. I have to stand up for our transgender community because, but I'm gonna tell you why. I have to do it because, did you know that? So there's this term called cisgender. Does anybody know what that term means? What does that term mean? Anybody? That you were born a sex and your gender is that same sex, right? So you were born female and you act female, whatever that means, right? And of course, but let me just say that that's a thing. Now most of us in this room are probably cisgender people. Maybe not everybody, but most of us probably are. We use gender affirming care every day. Did you know that? If you're a woman who takes hormones, and a lot of women who have completed menopause might take hormones. That's gender-affirming care. If you're a man who takes Viagra, that's gender-affirming care. It is. There's a disease that some boys get that causes breast development in their body, and they will have a mastectomy to get rid of that problem. That's gender affirming care. So how come us people who we are, we're born, we're genetically a sex, and our gender is that same sex, how come we get to have gender affirming care, but other people don't? It feels like a equal protection problem for me. And also I'll tell you another thing when it comes to sports, and I just want y'all to know why I've been fighting on this front. I'm a person who loves sports. I love sports. I played sports my whole life. When I was a kid, I ran track. When I was a young man, I ran track, and I played football, and I love sports. And I really believe that it builds character, teamwork, camaraderie. And so to tell some kid, you can't play, I don't think that's the right thing to do. Now, when you get older, and that's complicated, you know what I mean? And a lot of those older trans athletes, they take hormones so that they're in line. But I just want you all to know why your AG is fighting these cases for this community. Because I think it's important that you understand that. And I'm going to be standing, I believe in liberty and justice for. That's how I roll. So that's why we're doing that. So we're in about 3 lawsuits with the president over that. We sued him over Doge asset. Remember Doge? Seemed like a long time ago, doesn't it? We sued him over Doge access to the Treasury data. We went on that one. National Institute of Health. We had to sue on that. Now you should know Minnesota is a big state for medical research. A lot of people are employed in that field in our state. And so when they cut our NIH money, that's a big cut. We sued them on that. A lot of federal employee firings. One of the I'll tell you this. When they cut the U.S. aid for international development, there's a lot of Minnesotans who work in Minnesota who were hurt. Because they would buy agricultural products in Minnesota and send them to people so people abroad could eat, and that actually impacted negatively our farm communities. So that was a thing. They tried to cut VA funding and staff. We went to court and fought for that. They're trying to they're trying to mess with our voter rolls. And look, Pam Bondi said, we want your voter rolls, and me and Steve Simon had said, hell no. And I'm gonna tell you why. and I want you to know why. Because you got personal data that this federal government simply doesn't have any legal right to. So we sued them over that, and that case is still going on. But I believe we're going to win that case because they don't have any legal basis. And I'm leading up to something. I hope you know what I'm talking about. I am leading up to something, but I could keep going on. There's 54 of them. They tried to hold our FEMA money hostage. Federal emergency management. Now imagine, or maybe don't imagine, but just we're having wildfires in California, flooding in Minnesota. We're having tornadoes. I mean, this is like the worst day of your life, right? I mean, maybe you've been through it or you've seen it, but it's tough times. If you ever drove through like LA after the fires there, you're like, wow, this is really tough. Or you've been to New Orleans with the flooding, or you've been here with the flooding in the Red River Valley. It's tough. Am I right? Federal government under Trump says, well, you could have your money if you deputize your law enforcement as to be ICE agents. I'm like, no, you're just going to give us the money. Minnesota pays more in federal taxes than we get back. So now they're going to take our money and not give us services that we pay for? Man, that's not going to happen. And so there are a whole, I'm only on 29. I could keep going. but SNAP, supplemental nutrition assistance. So poor people who, we're talking about seniors, we're talking about kids. We're talking about people on disability. He says he tries to cut off our SNAP benefits. You better believe we went to court to sue him on that. And guess what? They got turned back on. I know many of you. Oh, and how about this? You know, he's talking about law and order, but they cut the Department of Justice Victims of Crime Act, which is really, really sad, because I can't imagine anybody who's an elected public official not trying to do everything they can to protect people from being crime victims. I mean, come on, that really is the fundamental job, you know, to protect the public from harm. Tried to cut our solar for all program as we're trying to do more green energy. And I'll say this. Oh yeah, we also filed a lot of amicus briefs. Now, what are these? Friend of the court briefs. One of them I want you to know about is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You know, after the 2008 financial collapse, when 4 million people lost their houses in foreclosure, remember that? Y'all forgot about that one already? No. We set up this thing called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that did a lot of things. It did consumer protection. It also regulated the systemically important big banks, right? The ones that caused all the trouble in the first place. Their regulators was the CFPB, and he, you know, cut money to the CFPB and fired a bunch of people. They sued. We didn't have standing, but what we did is we joined in that lawsuit as amicus. And so this is a lot of the friend of the court briefs. And, you know, in the lawsuit that I'm about to talk about, we have we're going to a lot of municipalities and counties in Minnesota to join us as amicus. So that's why amicus briefs are on my mind. But the lawsuit we just filed was in response to the largest single deployment of immigration officers in the history of the United States of America, which took place in our very state and is still going on now, but started in early December. According to what I've heard, it's trailed off in some places, still going on in others, and we sued the president over that. We sued Kristi Noem over that. This is called... This is called Operation Metro Surge. But as you and I know, it's not just the Metro. My wife is on these signal chats, so she's hearing about all this stuff going on. And they're in Le Center, they're in Le Sueur. I mean, it's going on all over the place. We all know about Renee Good and Alex Preddy. But what we did is we joined with some local municipalities, cities, and we filed a lawsuit to say something very simple, which is that the federal government cannot use 4,000 masked armed men to get what they could not get through the normal process of the law. So let me just say, because I want y'all to understand this lawsuit. So you know that the states predate the United States. Let me take you back to your civics class. When the United States came into being, the states had already existed. The states said, okay, we'll be part of the United States, and we will allow the federal government to be supreme in areas of federal law, but everything else is up to us. And if you all will remember those first 10 amendments called the Bill of, the 10th one said that the federal government is a government of enumerated and limited powers, and everything else is up to the states. Prosecuting crime is fundamentally a state function. Licensing doctors, licensing nurses, licensing nursing homes. All this is state stuff. Most of elections, state stuff. So much of this stuff is state stuff. If you were to go to another country, you know, because of the history of their country, maybe the federal government is supreme in everything. but not in the United States. So this lawsuit basically says that, look, you do, Mr. Federal Government, have authority to regulate immigration because it's one of those enumerated things that is your thing. But you cannot force the states to do what you are, one, paid to do and legally authorized to do. You can't make us do your job through coercion. You all will remember the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Do you remember that ultimately the Supreme Court said that the president could not force the states to accept the Medicaid expansion? Who knows what I'm talking about? It had to be voluntary. And a lot of states like Minnesota said, well, of course we'll do it. We like making sure people got health care around here. But some states didn't want to do it, and I think some still have not done it. That was a part of what they call anti-commandeering. The federal government cannot coerce the states into doing something. But the federal government is trying to coerce us into doing immigration enforcement. Now, I'd like you all to know that I agree that if there's somebody who's not even authorized to be in our country and is hurting people, committing crimes, I'm not trying to let them stay here. Believe me, I'm all for them going back where they came from. I mean that. But like, what about everybody else, which is a whole lot of people? If you have a pending asylum petition because you have a good faith and a well-founded fear of persecution, you should be able to have somebody really hear your petition. Think about Venezuela. Our president thinks that Venezuela under Maduro is so dangerous that they kidnapped the guy they got him, whatever word what you want to call it. But yet, if you have been protesting Maduro and you had to run out of the country because you feared what they were going to do to you, and now they're saying maybe we won't even give you a real hearing on your asylum petition? It doesn't make any sense. We have international treaty responsibilities to provide due process rights to asylees, people seeking asylum. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's every country assigned to the treaty does it, and we should do it. And so what I'm saying to you about the immigration is that it is the federal government's job to regulate immigration, but they cannot make us do what they're paid to do and is their responsibility. Now, we do have our responsibilities. Under Minnesota law, I can even tell you the last statute, if you're interested, it's called Minnesota Statute 631.50, and it says that if you are convicted of a felony, then the jail or the prison will inquire as to your nationality and will report it to immigration officials. That's been the law for decades. And they do it. And the immigration officials who are here, they had to agree that the Minnesota Department of Corrections is abiding by the law. It's also the case that if you are in jail and have not been convicted of anything, that when the jail is done with you for whatever you were arrested for, they cannot keep you any longer than that, and if they do, it's a rearrest. And that might mean that your Fourth Amendment rights have been violated, and that might mean you're going to get sued and face liability. So when the federal government says, hold them for us beyond your process, they're asking us to subject ourselves to liability. It's not legal to do that. Once we're done with them, judges giving them bail or whatever, set their conditions, they got to abide by them. We cannot interfere with the immigration officials, but we also can't hold somebody beyond our legal process to hold them. Now, that's just the way the law is. There's an important case called Esparza versus Nobles County. This has been litigated recently. And we have to we have to abide by what the law requires. Now, much has been said about cooperating with ICE. You've heard the Tom Homan comes into town. By the way, Kristi Noem never called any of us. Me or the governor. Kristi Noem never called us. Bovino never called us. Homan, after 2 people are dead and others are shot, comes in town, he starts calling people. Good. And we told him, here are our limitations. He doesn't argue with us. He's not saying we're wrong. But I tell him, look, instead of talking about cooperation, let's talk about obeying the law. We're obeying state law, and we're here to obey the law, and that means that we will make sure that if there's somebody you have a legal right to take into custody, nobody's going to stop you from doing that. But holding people beyond the legal process of the state of Minnesota who are not convicted of a crime, that's not something we can do. You better come get them if you want them, but we can't hold them longer than the Fourth Amendment allows us to hold them. Now, let me also tell you one other reason why that's a bad thing. Say somebody is pretrial and they're accused of an ugly crime like criminal sexual conduct. Now, they haven't been convicted, but maybe there's a victim out there who got the courage to say, this person did this to me. You follow me? So now, this person has been arrested. Maybe they make bail. In Minnesota, all offenses are bailable. I don't know if you know that, but it's true. I've been a lawyer 36 years. I'm telling you right. Now, those people, if we don't keep that person in our custody, and the ICE just picks them up and sends them back to, I don't know, Ecuador or somewhere, wherever they come from, now no one has answered for what happened to that person. The state has a right and an obligation and a responsibility to see justice through for any crime victim. So for ICE just to grab people and send them back, that's not always doing justice for our people. So I just want you to know where we're coming from and why the lawsuit we filed in my Operation Metro Surge is a righteous lawsuit. I will tell you the problems with it, though. There's not a lot of precedent. You know how judges make decisions in cases, right? Based on what? And what does precedent basically mean? Anybody? History. The way we did it before was, right? That's precedent. What if there's a way, we didn't do it before? That's the problem with this case. We're saying, Judge, they cannot use 4,000 masked armed men to coerce us into doing something that if we were in court, the court would tell them you cannot make the state of Minnesota do that. You follow what I'm saying? That's what it's all about. So our real task is to bring enough evidence and show the court, hey, look, not only did they marshal 4,000 people to try to force us to do stuff, the massive violations of people's Fourth Amendment rights, barging into people's house with no judicial warrant, arresting people with no probable cause, arresting people because they speak English with an accent or because they look like, in your eyes, like an immigrant, whenever that is, you know? And so that's why we're fighting this case. And that's why we definitely need your support. And I'm telling you that this is a very concerning situation for me because these masks are very bothersome to me. And I'll tell you why they are. Because every cop you know, every state trooper you know, every sheriff's deputy you know, they put their name on a metal plate. The car they drive has a name on it. You know this is the Department of, whatever city you may be in across Minnesota or across America. So the police, understand that they are enforcing laws democratically passed by we the people, and we the people say these are the laws, and we're going to hire you folks to make sure people do it. And so your average officer isn't ashamed to do what they're doing. In fact, they're proud of it, and we are proud of it when they do their job well, right? We are proud of it because these are our laws. We pass these laws, and we ask these men and women to make sure that everybody goes by them, and that is honorable and right and just and good. So what kind of law are you enforcing if you won't even let people know who you are? You could be a bandit. You're dragging people into some white van, and you're wearing a mask yourself. This is not good policing. You know why? If an officer says you're under arrest, turn around, assume the position. You know why you do it? And I would do it. Because even if you feel that you didn't do what you're accused of or they think you did, that this is a legitimate police officer from a legitimate police department, and you are going to get your call, and you will be treated humanely when you're sitting in the cell or whatever, and there's an answer coming. But what if you have no idea and you're dealing with secret police? You're not even sure they are law enforcement. You think they might be, but you're not sure. This is dangerous, and it is bad, and it erodes trust. And I'm going to tell you, any police officer will tell you, you need public trust. It's the public that says, I think they're selling dope in that house down the street. It's the public that says, I'm not sure, but that somebody just left that satchel right there. I'm not sure why they left it there, who they are, or what. You know what I mean? It is public trust which allows law enforcement to be effective at their job. Right now, ICE has no trust. None. They've burned it all up. And what I'm saying is if they ever hope to regain any, they cannot operate the way they're operating right now. 47 days of training these new people have. 47 days. You know why it's 47? Can you think of anything more ridiculous? And so look, we the people of Minnesota are standing up. We're speaking out. We're protecting our democracy. You all can count on my office to protect our vote and our civil rights. But I'll tell you this, I don't believe that the freedom of America or Minnesota is sitting in a courtroom. I believe it's in the hearts of our people, and I believe it's in the streets of our cities and our states and our counties. And when people go out and protest, that's what really protects our country. That's really what protects our country. And so I'm very proud to be a Minnesotan. I always have. I wasn't lucky enough to be born in the state. I was born in Michigan. And, look, I love this state I was born in. My two older brothers live there. My nieces and nephews are there. But I stay here because this state has a certain something about it. It does. A bunch of people with whistles standing up to, armed masked men, threatening their neighbors. And then people, making sure that people had enough food and rides here and there, and making sure that, people gave money so that small businesses that were negatively impacted might be able to get a little bit of bridge support. If you're in that situation, call the Minneapolis Foundation or the Chamber of Commerce. There's money there for you. You should be very proud that I was in San Francisco the other day. They were telling me, man, Minnesota, look at Minnesota, wow. I'm like, yeah, we kind of thought of ourselves as, regular folks, right? Turns out we're kind of badass. This is really a remarkable thing. There's a reason why we have the best voter turnout in America. It's because there is a civic spirit here that is special. And it's from Lake of the Woods all the way down to the Iowa border. It's from Fergus all the way to Stillwater, and it certainly is right here in New Ulm. So let's talk, you guys. Let's have some conversation. Zach, you ready to get going? So let's stick with a minute. Make your point, and then we'll let 3 or 4 people go, and then I might comment. Are there any elected officials here tonight? Anybody? Okay, I just want to give them a little rec. Oh, yeah. Could you introduce yourself, ma'am? Thank you, Sarah. Oh, Sarah Leslie, and she's on the school board. Okay, we're going to have a brief interlude for technical assistance. So anybody up front want to go? Go for it.
Who's going to pay for all this carnage in Minneapolis and St. Paul? Where's that money coming from? Completely from the state and people in it, or?
So the question was, all of the damage that has been caused by Operation Metro Surge, they estimated it like $203 million. Not to mention the loss of life and stuff like that. Who's going to pay? Well, let me assure you one thing. We are right this very moment figuring out how we can get some compensation in the courts. All right? Right this moment. And so we filed the lawsuit, Operation Metro Surge. You can amend that lawsuit to put in damages and compensation, and and that's what we are right in the middle of that right now. So.
I think with the increased now in mental health, the kids are less off.
Yeah.
When they're scared and still and the things that they've experienced, and I mean, mental health should skyrocket.
Well, can I just say this about mental health? One of the things I've been asking people to do is, we've been doing a great job pulling ourselves into different little teams to work on different things. And I just hope, and I can't do it because, I got a full plate, but I would hope that mental health professionals, and I mean if you're a clergy, social worker, or a psychiatrist or psychologist, just get together to just talk about how we can help people through these difficult moments. Because we all know what one-on-one therapy is. We even know what group therapy is. But what about societal therapy? What about if the president is trying to freak out the whole state or the whole country? I don't know how you deal with that from a mental health standpoint, but I bet some people do know and have some ideas on how to do it, and have some ideas on how to help people manage stress, anxiety. And it would be a great service if some folks with that training came together to just start brainstorming a little bit. You want to say something else?
Well, I'm just thinking, I would hope that almost every employer would just have a gathering of all the employees and ask, just have them have an opportunity to talk about how this is impacting them, because grandkids are in Minneapolis, or, there's all these hidden agendas that are happening in the place of the employee place, and they don't have an opportunity to talk about it. And I think it's so real and so palpable.
No.
I think in places of employee, nowhere to go.
You're so right. You're so right. Thank you for bringing that up. I know and we have something called the Employee Assistance Program in the state of Minnesota, and we've had plenty of conversations with our staff about this, because people feel it, man. People feel it. We've had people in tears. And thank you for bringing that up. Let's keep going. Zach, is our microphone working?
Check.
Okay, go for it.
Good.
Hi, Mr. Ellison. I have a question. There's news that's kind of worrisome to me about these ICE agents standing in November at polling sites, screening for immigration or immigrants or illegal. There's so much rhetoric about the voting fraud and the corruption and on and on and on. Can you speak a little bit about you're confident in the upcoming vote, what you can do to protect the voting places, and what you can do about this ICE issue?
Right. So we are very concerned about this issue. This is a top issue. Secretary Simon, Steve Simon, y'all know him? Yeah. He and I have had a lot of meetings about this. And what are we doing? Number one, we're protecting your data. When the federal government is demanding your information, we're not giving it to them. Number two, when they're saying that you have to have an original birth certificate in order to vote, we're saying, no, you don't. We've gone to court, we defeated them on that. And we are, we're doing a lot of tabletop exercises, like gaming it out. What do we, to do election protection? So Our Attorney General Association's been working on this for months. We have a special group that works on it, and they're running scenarios that I haven't even thought of yet. What I would say is if you can volunteer as an election judge, please do so. If you can be a part of the system, do so. It is a strength of the American election system that it is based in our states. If it was federal, imagine the same people who are running for federal office would be in charge of the federal election. You can see, nothing could go wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
But you're right to raise the question. We're thinking about it constantly, and we're not waiting until October to do it.
Okay, and one more quick question. Alex Preddy and Renee Good were both on videotape. It's to me so obvious that there is a case against those ICE agents that killed them. And I'm sure you know Mary Moriarty.
Well, I know her very well.
Well, she's a hometown girl.
Is she?
Actually, yes, she lived in the house. She grew up in the house that I live in right now. And so
Wow.
we're all rooting for her. But what I don't understand is why can't she bring a case?
Wow, I'm so glad you asked me about this. So let me tell you this. So the Hennepin County Attorney's Office and the Minnesota Attorney General's Office have a memorandum of understanding to work together on all of these cases. Because it's not just two, it's the two homicides, but there's even more. And there is enough eyewitness testimony, and there's enough video, and there's enough other evidence to maybe make out a charge right now. But here's the problem. When you prosecute a case, it's the defense attorney's job to take a bat to your case. And I know it doesn't make sense to some folks, but I guarantee you I've seen people lose cases that are too heavy on only video. So what you're seeing is not reluctance to charge. You're not seeing that. What you're seeing is preparation. You're seeing preparation is what you're seeing. I am promising you that on my word of honor. You're not seeing a reluctance to charge. As a matter of fact, you might have seen that when Alex Preddy was killed, I actually went to court and sued to freeze the scene and preserve the evidence, and the court granted a temporary restraining order within 2 hours after we filed it. He didn't even want a hearing. And so we did that immediately to protect the evidence. Now, let me just tell you how extraordinary that is. We work with federal agents all the time. It's totally routine for the BCA, police, sheriffs, troopers. They got like joint task forces on fentanyl or whatever. I mean, it is not at all unusual for local and federal officials, criminal justice officials, to work on, stuff. As a matter of fact, some of y'all know that I prosecuted the people who killed George Floyd, and we convicted them. Well, we worked with the FBI on that matter. We worked with the federal prosecutors on that matter. It's not, for them to tell us you cannot have access to the file is very new and very strange, and it makes me wonder if they're trying to cover up something. And when you put in there that they're talking about, they're accusing these people of being domestic terrorists, it tells you kind of all you want to know. But I need to have everybody understand this. This is really important. It is irresponsible for a prosecutor to say, oh, we're going to charge them. No, that's not what you do. You complete your investigation, then you make a charging decision, or you go to the grand jury, and then you start prosecuting them. But do not think because 4 weeks have passed since Alex Preddy was killed that nothing's being done. There's work being done every single day, and action being done to preserve the file. Because if you're a defense attorney, one of the things you're going to say is, oh yeah, well they're telling you that my client did this crime, he didn't do it, and you know what? They didn't show you this, they didn't show you that, they didn't show you that, this evidence not there, that evidence not there. They just show you some videotape, but they only show you one angle, but if you really look at it, it's this. So if you're a prosecutor, you got to dot every I, cross every T, anticipate what the defense is going to be. Now I'll tell you a few other things. One is that there is a qualified immunity. Qualified and absolute is not the same, right? It ain't the same. There is a qualified immunity in these cases under the supremacy clause. So if a federal agent commits a crime in a state, the state investigators and prosecutors can investigate and charge that federal agent, but the federal agent has a qualified defense. What is it? The federal agent gets to say, Judge, I was doing my job, and I was doing what was necessary and proper to do my job. So imagine a federal truck driver who runs into somebody on the road and they die. And then this local prosecutor wants to charge him. The federal truck driver will say, I was just driving the truck and the person ran out, and me driving the truck and driving in the roadway is necessary and proper. Judge, this case needs to be dismissed. Probably would be. But what if, is it necessary and proper to disarm somebody and then shoot him 10 times? I'm not going to say. I'm just asking a question. I'll let y'all say whatever you want. Because I'm a prosecutor, I'm just asking a question. Is it necessary and proper to shoot somebody as they're pulling away from you and then shoot through the side window in one ear, out the other? Which is what the news reports say happened with Renee Good. There's a problem with the necessary and proper part. And so, I'm just telling you that what you're going to see over the next few weeks is you're going to see this stuff play out. But I am promising you, all of us want this thing dealt with as fast as possible, don't we? But sometimes doing it fast is not doing it right. And I'm just telling you, nobody is delaying anything. We're just making sure that we're doing things in the right, correct way so that we get to the truth and we get to justice. Now, as a prosecutor, I cannot say somebody's going to be charged or not charged. I can say that the investigation will be thorough and nobody is going to ignore clear evidence. But I acknowledge your original point, which is if the case was only about the video and it was only about the eyewitness agent, the people on scene, you could probably get probable cause out of that. But that's just, you've got to do more to make sure. One last thing on this. So on the Floyd case, there was video, right? We did not try that case based on the video. We tried it based on the witnesses. And then we used the video to augment and bolster the eyewitness testimony. Because a slick defense attorney knows how to manipulate the video. You understand what I'm saying? Rodney King was on video. So I know that the last thing in the world a person like me should ask you for is patience, but I have to ask you for some more patience.
I have a question related to that, pretty.
Yeah.
How much is the fact that how much the fact that the federal government is not sharing information with you guys? How much is that hurting your case? Do you need that?
We do need that, but they might have to give it to a federal judge might order them to give it to us, right? That's where we're at. That's what this is working its way up to. Look, there's no statute of limitations on murder. And then also, and I'm not telling you it's going to take that long. I'm just telling you that this ain't over, okay? I'm also want you to know that getting all so you can have enough evidence to charge a case out, but you need to be able to answer the questions that will inevitably be raised by the defense counsel, which is, where's the gun, where are the casings, where's the window, if the bullet entered the window this way, maybe she was doing this, or maybe he thought that. And you got to put together a tight case. Let me take you back to the Floyd case. When they said, oh, he had something called, what they call it, like delirium, something like excited delirium. They said that Floyd died spontaneously because he had excited delirium. We brought in an expert on excited delirium and said he was neither excited or delirious. When they said that he died because of an enlarged heart, we brought in a cardiologist. When they said he died because of drug overdose, we brought in a toxicologist. You see what I'm saying? Man, you gotta come in there with your game tight, because you don't want to get an A for effort. You want to win. So there you go. Yes, sir. And speak up loud.
Okay. I have a question in here, but I have a concern also when you're talking about that case, because I totally agree that my own personal opinion is those people should be prosecuted, unfortunately, and allowed to spend the rest of their life in prison. That's my opinion. However, the one question is, if you bring a case now, and because they're federal agents, if the Department of Justice tries to bring that into federal court, if they are, and even if we get a conviction there, could the president not pardon them then?
See, this is a very sharp question.
Because if he can, then I would rather have, even though I know they say justice, delayed is justice denied, I would rather have it delayed and gotten than rush to it, and then he pardons them. Imagine how those families would feel. They're victimized a second time because they'll never spend a day in prison for what they did. So I think a lot of thought needs to go into this.
Well, let me tell you a few things that I can tell you right now. A few things I can tell you about that right now. So there's this case called In Re Nagel. For all the nerds who want to read the case, it's called In Re Nagel, and it's Naegle. In Re Nagel. And so this case, and there's a whole lot of cases after it, is like an 1890s case. What happens when a state charges a federal agent is that, you are right, the case is removed from state court to federal court. But you keep your state court prosecutors. And if convicted, the person is convicted of a state court offense. And the one reason Derek Chauvin's never going to get a pardon from Trump, well, he can get one, but he still ain't going anywhere, is because he's convicted on state charges. The president cannot pardon state charges. He can pardon federal charges. So the arena will be a federal courthouse if we get there. The arena will be a federal courthouse, but it'll be under state law. It'll be Minnesotans on the jury. And of course, everybody's presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Thanks a lot.
Is that what
We'll get to you.
We get one of,
I have another ICE-related question.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm a mental health therapist, so I do think that it's wreaking tremendous havoc on our state's mental health. I'm particularly concerned about our children and the trauma that we've experienced, not just from ICE, but years and years of trauma going back through a lot of things within our state, just particularly in the metro area. But we don't have enough mental health professionals, particularly in rural Minnesota. That's a whole other topic. Is there anything we can do to protect children within the schools? I find it incredibly disturbing that there are kids being taken from schools, outside of schools, teachers being killed, teachers being taken, being targeted. Schools should be a safe place. I know we already have concerns about guns in schools, but this brings it to a whole other level, that there's concerns about ICE agents going into schools and patrolling schools. What can we do?
Well, you think about 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos. He will never forget being detained that way. You're absolutely right. I can tell you, let me just tell you what I think could work, and maybe some people are doing this already. And look, I'm not trying to give you things to do, so forgive me, okay? But I think if folks like yourself could just start a conversation and say, look, here is the psychological impact on a child. What do they call that? There's like a thing that if you're a kid and you face these things, ACEs, right. I mean, this is like an ACEs factor, isn't it? You know, being detained, you know? I mean, it is important for people in your world to be able to document and to transmit to the rest of us, particularly in the legal world, what this means. I mean, I can see how a declaration from somebody like you might be helpful in our case, because we'll be able to tell the court, Judge, this is what happens when this kind of stuff happens, you know? So I will say that I know that schools first of all, they don't have the ICE doesn't have the right to enter your school without a judicial warrant. If ICE shows up at your school, school leaders should meet them at the door, say, you know what, you should even post a picture without a judicial warrant. You know, you must report directly to the principal's office, and you cannot walk around our school, you know. But at the end of the day, we need the expertise of your profession in order to make a cogent legal argument about sensitive places. We're in the same conversation around courts. Imagine being a domestic abuse victim, and you're trying to go to court to get a order for protection against somebody who's harming you, and you're scared to go because of ICE, right? This is damaging. But I will tell you that school districts, school board members, I mean, have you all talked about this issue? What are some of the things that you all sort of been talking about? I don't want to put you on the spot or nothing, but. Yeah. Sorry about that.
I got to get a shout out. She's on the school board as well. She doesn't want to. Yeah, we've talked about, we do have policies in place for if they show up. I think where the concern is around dismissals and drop-offs in the morning, where it's not people coming into the building. They're not even really on school grounds, but it's the parents that are dropping the kids off that are concerned. And I don't know that there's a great way to address this. I think we've had discussions with our local law enforcement, and they've been helpful that way. But I know that there's a signal group of people that are doing patrols at all the schools in the mornings, and that's kind of all we can do about that.
You know what could really help is if our school board, is there an association of school boards members? What you guys generate, would be really helpful for the whole state. And the thing is, what they do in Minneapolis might be different from what they do in New Ulm, right? And so it'll be important to have like a diverse group of people talking about these problems, small town, urban, rural, suburban, to share some things, and then help people in my position say, here's what the effect is, so we can go to court on this kind of stuff. And we've had a lot of cities, and I think even a few school districts, join our lawsuit on Operation Metro Surge because of the very damaging impact on our school kids. I mean, I'm telling you, there are some school districts where like a third of the kids are not even showing up. Now that's terrible, because now they're not getting instruction. And one thing's for sure, all kids, and this is the law, have a legal right to an education, regardless as to their immigration status. If they're in your classroom, you got to teach them. And so, that's the law, They have a constitutional right for that. So let's keep talking. I thank you for raising the issue. But courts, schools, domestic abuse shelters, there's a lot of sensitive churches, mosques, synagogues, houses of worship generally, all very sensitive places. Zach, let's get some folks up.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. You had mentioned.
Hey, good to see you. How you doing?
Hello. You had
That's
mentioned,
my old buddy right there.
You had mentioned 54
lawsuits, yeah.
So what's your track record on those 54?
About 83%, but some are still pending. We've been winning those cases, but we had some decisions that we really cannot count as a win. So, for example, on Operation Metro Surge, when we filed that lawsuit, we asked for a TRO. We didn't get it. And then when we went up to the Supreme Court on the birthright citizenship, That case is still pending. We've won in every court up till then, but they granted this thing to restrict nationwide injunctions. So how do you count that one? We really can't put it down as a win. So we're about, when it comes to every hearing that we've been in and the rulings that we've had, we've won 83% of them.
And can we get payment for attorney's fees for that? Can we
Well-
get reimbursed for our costs for that?
Well, you know what? That's a good thought. You know what I mean? Sometimes there's a statute that says you get attorney's fees. Generally, you don't get attorney's fees. But there are some cases that are so badly done by the federal government that I think that we might be able to ask the judge for Rule 11. You know, there's this, any lawyers in the house? Well, there's this thing called Rule 11, and if you file a frivolous lawsuit or put up a frivolous defense, you can get in trouble for that, and that might make you pay the other side's attorney's fees. So these are some things that we've been exploring, because there's been some god-awful lawyering on the other side, I'm gonna tell you that much. Let's keep going, folks.
I was under the understanding, or I read, that the Fridley Public Schools had filed some kind of a lawsuit along with others to try to keep ICE away from the schools, and I don't know if the churches and some other groups were in on that. Am I wrong on that, or has anybody else heard that?
I gotta be honest and tell you, I am not sure about that one. Well, I can tell you that Fridley Public Schools are getting daily disruptions, and so is Columbia Heights, which is right next to it. Whether they have filed a lawsuit or not, I don't know, but I can tell you this, on Operation Metro Surge, I'm pretty sure we have amicus support, or they've joined our case. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm from St. Peter,
Hey
Minnesota.
there. Oh, yeah, well,
Yes,
you were in the news.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't me personally, but.
But I mean,
But anyway, speaking about the schools, ICE in our community was hanging around the bus stops, and that was a big issue. So, I mean, they're finding ways, they didn't hang around, they weren't around the schools, but the bus stops. And that has really diminished how many kids are coming to school. So we have a lot of kids still just staying home, not leaving their homes. So,
Wow.
you know, if we can partner together with other small towns and how ICE has acted in those areas too, that would be great.
well, let me just say, so ICE was at about 4,000. They had 3,000 plus the ones they already had, and so we're somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000. Then, you know, they went down to 2,300, then they went down a little more to 1,500. Then last week they tried to say they were only down to 500. I'm not sure I believe that at all. But their normal number is about 80 people for a 5-state area. That's their normal. 80 people, 5-state area. So they're way above their normal. And one thing we know that they have done is they've gone to smaller cities and they've gone to more rural communities. And that is what they have done. And so what I would say is what they're trying to do is, like, you know, it might be a little harder to mobilize people or whatever, so they're trying to take advantage of that vulnerability. But I would say that let's just stay in touch. Let's stay on these signal chats. Let's keep talking. Let's trade ideas, because we have absolutely got to stand up against this. And that video that I saw in St. Peter was disturbing, very disturbing. And that lady showed a lot of guts, man. And I'd like to shake her hand. Yeah. Hey, Zach, when you get a minute, come up this way. How you doing?
This is going to be a hard one.
Okay.
We're just new friends, you know. No, I'm just kidding. So, do we have any sense on immigration how many people have been removed without due process from Minnesota? And do we know the breakdown between people with legal status and people with presumed non-legal status?
Yeah. They say they've taken 4,000 people out of Minnesota. I got to be honest with you. I don't. If that data exists, I actually don't know it.
And what are we doing to bring our neighbors home?
We're filing habeas corpus petitions. We've filed. I'm gonna tell you, the federal district court is absolutely swamped with federal habeas petitions. Y'all know what a habeas petition is? Anybody want me to explain that? So a habeas petition is just it's a legal it's a thing that you can do in American law if the government has you in jail. You can file a petition and make them bring you before a court and explain their justification for you being locked up. And so that's what it is. And the federal district court has been flooded. I mean, you should, if you all want to do some really fascinating reading, there's a judge who's a very conservative guy named Judge Schultz. And he has been into it with ICE because they've ignored some of his orders. Has anybody been following this story? Yeah, it's out there. And so we have a flood of habeas petitions. The judges have to go through them. There's not enough judges to go through them. And these are not ICE judges. These are federal district court judges going through this. And so I'll dig into those numbers to see if I can find a good number for you, and we'll share it back. But I can tell you that we are flooded with ICE petitions that have not been followed to the letter by ICE, and the courts and ICE are in an open battle over it right now.
Yes, my wife was going to come tonight, but she's from Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Sure.
When she was 10 years old, their house on Shankill Road, the British soldiers kicked in the door, ransacked the house, threw her mother to the ground, and she sees what's happening in Minneapolis area, and she won't go anywhere out with me now. She's afraid of anywhere where there's an assembly of people. I'm wondering, is there anything that we can do proactively now to avoid such situations, yet still live a life without fear? I mean, we're living in fear right now. She's afraid to, go to school concerts for her grandchildren and stuff like that, and it's just a nightmare. My children as well, because 3 of our children were born in the United Kingdom. Only one of them was born here in the States. And for myself, the only thing I can think of, is there anything that we can, what do I do if ICE knocks on the door, basically?
Right, so if ICE knocks on your door at your house, you demand to see a judicial warrant. You don't let them in. If you can talk to them through the door or the slot, that's what you should do, right? And you demand to see a warrant, and if they don't have one, then they can't come in. They'll have to leave. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's a little hard, and it's particularly hard for your wife because she's been traumatized by if you all know the story about Northern Ireland, you know that the British government was not kind to the people of Ireland in many occasions. And I'm not excusing everything. I know it's complicated, but they were oppressed. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Because I've been to Dublin, I've taken a little time to study that situation. They occupied Ireland for like 800 years and still are hanging on to Northern Ireland where Belfast is located. Anyway, this is not going to be easy, but I got to tell you anyway. The antidote for anxiety is activism. The antidote for anxiety is activism. Now look, maybe your wife, she just can't bring herself to do that because it's just too much. And don't try to force her or anything. But it is the case that if you start doing something, it will make you feel better. Now, one thing that'll make you feel worse is watching horrible videos one right after another. Don't do that. But saying, can I drive this bag of food to this family? you'll feel better having done it. You'll feel like you did something, and you could even do it with her. You know what I mean? But like, this is going back to this mental health conversation. There are people in our community who've been through some stuff, man, and this is completely triggering them. And if you grew up in Northern Ireland or even Somalia, or you grew up under Maduro or something, there are people who are like, oh my God, I'm scared to death. My wife is also an immigrant. She never leaves the house without a passport. She's a naturalized U.S. citizen. Why should she have to do that? Because she's but I would tell you that the only way to really begin to feel better and to not sweat this out is to find some way to get into, the protection of our state. And it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying go get a big sign that says Trump sucks and, be on stage. I mean, that's perfectly fine for you to do. It's your First Amendment right to do it. But what I'm saying is if that's not your cup of tea, then don't worry about it. There's plenty of people who would do that. You don't need to. But find something to do that you feel is easing little pain on someone else. And that is going to alleviate your stress and anxiety. I mean, am I right about this? So I got a psychologist's opinion over here. She said, yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I'm from Medelia, which is a little tiny town about 30 miles south of here, which is right down the road from St. James. And in St. James, 1 out of every 500 people in St. James has been detained by ICE.
Wow.
And I cannot even begin to explain the impact on the entire county, of which Medelia is part of it. The economic impact on the region is just beyond comprehension.
Right.
Grocery stores, restaurants, the laundromat. I'm an optometrist. My office, our patient volume has been down by 60% for the last month. Is there any sort, the only thing that we community and businesses can compare it to is COVID. With COVID, we wound up with all sorts of economic relief and stimulus from the federal government. We know that that's not coming now. Funny thing. We feel like we're just left floating out by ourselves. Do you know if there is any sort of potential relief for those of us in especially smaller rural areas? People all think Metro Surge is Metro. St. James is 2.5 hours southwest of the Metro.
No, you're right. So look, I want you to contact the Minneapolis Foundation. I know they've collected money for small businesses and to keep them afloat. And so the philanthropic community has recognized the problem here, and even the Chamber of Commerce has recognized the problem here. And a lot of small businesses have gotten some bridge loans or even grants. So that's like the pragmatic answer to your question. But, and then of course, we're fighting this lawsuit. We're not dropping it. We're keeping fighting it on, and it's for the whole state. But in the meantime, you have all of, can I say that that she has all of our support, right? And and if we need to show up in I'll show up in what'd you say, New Delia? New Delia, St. James, and what's that? Yeah. If we need to show up and stand at a protest with you, we'll do it. I would do it. And so, but this is what it's going to take, right? If ever there was a moment in our state's history when we realized that we really do need each other, urban, suburban, rural, small town, it is this moment right now. It is this moment. Look, everybody in Minnesota has a loved one in somewhere like New Delia or someone sitting right in the heart of South Side of Minneapolis. How many people here got somebody who they care about and know well or love in the heart of Minneapolis. Right. So like this is about everybody. So, and if we were in Minneapolis and I said, who has somebody in New Ulm, a lot of hands would go up. It's just the reality of our state. And so we really are one state. And I will just say this too, by the way, and this is not really a partisan statement, although it might sound a little bit like that. The people who stood with ICE and the people who ordered this thing against us don't deserve to represent us. And I don't know if any of y'all ever thought about running for office, but I hope that you do. And it's not a life sentence. You can do it for a few times and then leave it. But we need people really getting involved right now. And I tell you, it's critical. That's why the tariff case was so important to me. When I was talking to soybean farmers, finding out that now, Brazil and Argentina are taking over the markets for China, which they used to fulfill, my blood was just boiling. I mean, how could you do this to people? Well, they did it. And that's why maybe some of this money that he illegally collected should go back to relief for communities. That $175 billion, I think it could help a lot of folks around here. So thank you for sharing, okay? Yeah. Let me just tell everybody, we only asked y'all to stay with us until 7:30, so we got time for maybe 2 or 3 more, and then we're gonna dismiss.
Hi, I'm from the small burg of Cortland, just next door.
All right.
But our daughter, our oldest daughter, is in St. Paul and involved in her small school.
Sure.
And that's my neighbor here from St. Peter. And the same story, which you alluded to, is coming through from both areas, which is there are still ICE agents in our communities, but they're no longer wearing fatigues. They're no longer wearing identifiable things. They're identified because our communities are small enough that they know they don't belong in the schoolyard. They know they don't belong near the bus stop. But what should we do about that other than screening? I mean, human shields. But what do we do with these people?
I got 3 or 4 things for you. Number 1, take pictures of them. Number 2, document them. If you can get their license plate, that's good. Don't go near them. Don't engage them, because we don't want nothing bad to happen to you. Then get on the signal and tell people that they're there. Who is that? There's a master list of all the ICE license plates. And then let my office know, because we'll use it as part of our evidence in our case, that they're not just doing immigration. They're trying to terrorize us. And so none of those things solve the immediate problem, but the way we're going to solve the problem is the accumulated effect of all of those reports. So thank you for sharing as well. And let me just say, there's a lot of power in the story. I mean, and some folks are like, I don't know if anybody wants to hear about my little story. We actually do. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I got a little bit of something off the topic. I have great empathy for everything that everybody has said here. It is remarkable that we're all still standing over how pitiful it is sometimes. We've got to continue that. I'm concerned when a state agency is not accountable. And I'm thinking of the Minnesota State Department of Agriculture, which is a fine agency for almost everything they do. I really think it's good. They have the responsibility for the noxious weed laws of Minnesota. We are largely ignorant as a population of that. Noxious weeds are spoiling our land. They're not giving much for our grandchildren to look forward to. There are statutes that have been beautifully written that mandate how noxious weeds need to be controlled. I bet you don't even know if you have a noxious weed inspector, because you might not have one. You probably don't know much about noxious weeds, but some of them, like wild parsnip, are poisonous to the skin, toxic to the skin, like poison ivy. We have 22 sites in New Ulm that just started exploding last year for numbers. If your grandchild is out somewhere, touches one of those plants, his or her arm can bubble up from it. But anyway, what I'm getting at is, what do you do when you think that a state agency is not being accountable? What can one person
the first
do?
thing I would do is I'd write him a letter. I'd write a letter to Tom Peterson. But you know what I'll do for you? I'll take notes on this and tell the commissioner that I was at a meeting at New Ulm and somebody asked me about dealing with noxious weeds.
I have a letter for you.
Yeah. So, Marco, could you get the letter? And we'll make sure we get it to Commissioner Peterson. And thanks a lot. See, this is citizen activism right there. I think we got time for one last, maybe two. Maybe one or two to go. Yeah, go for it.
Good evening,
Hey.
Attorney General Ellison.
Yeah, Keith is good.
All right, thank you. Back in 2022, in November at the Farmers Union Convention, I had jumped you in the hallway.
I remember you.
Thank you.
How you doing, man? Good to
Good.
see you.
I'm here advocating.
Sure.
I like what you said about advocating and about the justice system. As you remember, I told you I was a victim of quick justice.
Yeah.
I was called up by Brown County Human Services and accused of bruising my wife's granddaughter's bottom. And all the investigating they did before they called me into the office was going down to the Medelia school and talking with her, and she has Down syndrome. She was not competent to answer their questions. In the written assessment report that I finally got, thanks to Representative Torkelson and Senator Dames, it was in there that she didn't answer their questions anywhere near how, I'm sorry to say that like this, a normal child without Down syndrome could have answered those questions. I was called up here to Brown County and I was accused of doing this to New Ulm. And that was right at the start of harvest. And I went through harvest with this hanging over my shoulders and going back and forth with the Human Services representative. And the one phone call she made to me, she said that she had been avoiding calling me because she couldn't pin nothing on me. Finally, in November, I got cleared. Now I have a file sitting up here in New Ulm, a few blocks away from here, that does not make me happy at all. It's an embarrassment. I'm ashamed of it. And for everything my wife and I did and done to raise this child up, we have had nothing but a heck of a go-around and lawyer expenses. And the best support my wife and I have had is my friendly local banker. The state hasn't helped us much, and the counties of Brown and Watonwan haven't helped us much. And one thing I would like to recommend for follow-up, there's all kinds of children in the state here that have been taken in by grandparents, and my wife and I had to hire a lawyer, and thanks to my banker again, did this. We had to go to court to get the child support money to come to our house. And it took a decade to do this, to get this money coming. That's something that should be checked up on, coming up by the state here, and that is where these children are living, that child support money is going to that residence. I'd like to see that. And as far as advocating, I've come up many times to the state capitol with the Minnesota Farmers Union for Lobby Day. This Thursday, I'm planning on being up there with Pacer for their Lobby Day on behalf of my granddaughter. That's a wonderful way, everyone, to advocate and get a few things off your nerves, is to get up to the state capitol. And I hope you have some comments, and I would sure like an invitation to your office someday to talk about this case. We lost it.
Consider yourself invited.
Thank you. We lost the case here, but now a big concern of mine is a mandatory reporter is supposed to report in 24 hours. This reporter said they saw it on Monday. They didn't do anything about it till a Thursday afternoon. And that's dangerous for our state's children to let that go on like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, come on, we'll get you a card, okay? And maybe I'll see you Thursday. Yeah, I'll be around. And I think, guys, we're after time now. So I think that I can talk to some folks in the hall, but I think, Zach, you're going to be in trouble with your mom if you don't let her get the last word.
Yeah, I guess the question I had for you would probably take a long time to answer. But on behalf of Indivisible, NEOM, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I'd like to thank you for coming and speaking with us. And because of the way things are right now, it is really nice to hear somebody reasonable and on our side and that's fighting and doing stuff for us. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody.